Hello DevOps friends, welcome to Full Stack Live, your live coding stream from OPSITIVE. I'm Jochen, your host, and on this nice and again rainy Tuesday, I'm happy to do another live stream. How is everyone? I hope you're doing well. And yeah, so today we're going to do some live coding and a little bit of learning as well. There are two things on my plate. First, I'd like to research how Gitlab uses their own platform for project management. I saw a few things that related to an incident that led me to their planning repositories, and that looked pretty interesting, and I'd like to get deeper into this just to see how a very DevOps adjacent project coordination can work. Exegete writes, doing well, that's good to hear. Good morning to you, and happy to have you here. Welcome to the stack. I'm doing great. I had a longer weekend, even though I did a live stream on Friday. I had the rest of the day basically off, but I also spent my whole afternoon editing videos for the Linux Administration Master Course, so it wasn't quite off work, but still, with the tip that you gave me, Exegete, about using the OBS projection feature to get my coding screen in front of myself on my main screen, I'm still relishing that information, and I'll be happy to try that out in practice today. And so, yeah, I took the weekend and tried to recover and simply recharge my batteries, and that really worked wonders. And so I've started this week really energized, and I hope to carry this energy into this live stream. But let's not make this a monologue on my side. Pop into chat if there's anything that you'd like to ask, or if there is something that you'd like to share. Is there something that you're doing at the moment that excites you? Is there an open source software that has blown your mind recently? Things like that, put them into chat and share them with everyone. I think this can be quite an interactive thing here. I'm not sure how to respond to that, Exegete. And with you, We'll find out. We'll find a way. Okay, so yeah, that's one thing, GitLab project management. And then last week I did a little bit of Rails work. And during that work, I fixed the issue with forms not returning valid information. So if someone doesn't fill out all the required fields and things like that, I was able to work out a way to display the error messages basically on each and every form in my Rails application. But there's still the issue that these error messages use the field name as they use the field name. So for example, if I don't fill in the city in my organization address field, then it'll display org city can't be empty, and org city isn't the best way to inform a user that they made a mistake. So I'd like to get into the translations feature of Rails to find out how easy it is to replace these field names with proper terms like organization, address, city, or something like that. So these two things will be the main thing that I'm doing today. And apart from that, if there's anything that you'd like me to see, you'd like to see me do, then let me know. So, let's see. So here we are, and I'd like to check out GitLab. Oh, did I disable the keyboard command? Okay. Yeah, I don't think I'll keep updating the keyboard command every time I switch keyboards. So I'll simply be my own stream bot and let you know that the current keyboard that you see is a Lulu, which is basically a luxury version of the Lily 53, right? No, can't be. Needs to be an even number. Lily 54? '58. Okay. So, yeah, there are many variations of the Lily 58. For example, the Lily 58 Pro, which is an improved version that I think is also Bluetooth. And so there was a group buy for a Lily 58 in an alu case with nice acrylic plates on the bottom to get to let out the backlighting, and with tenting feet and everything. So I of course jumped in and grabbed that, and it's actually one of my favorite split keyboards here, apart from the Corn. Even though I don't use the upper row and the outer columns, it's still very nice. I like the lighting, and there are nice U4T tactile switches in there, so I like the typing feel as well. So that's the keyboard of the day. Now, how do I get to the GitLab thing here. I think the first thing that we should actually check out is the GitLab handbook. Here's the handbook. And let's see if there is a section about project management. People group is employment and stuff. Engineering, here we go. Excuse me. So let's see. Development department. That's more of an org chart, looks like. I'd be interested. Maybe the infrastructure department has subtopics on how they deal with stuff. Finance, product. We already use GitLab for project management. Well, it's a combination of GitLab and Todoist. So we have a team subscription to Todoist, which is pretty cheap. And that's nice for the superficial tasks and assigning stuff on the back office side, for example. But for the DevOps work, we use GitLab. We switched to GitLab a few weeks ago, maybe a few months even. Yeah, and so we use the epics feature to track our main projects and product features. And below that, we have a bunch of repositories where we create issues related to these epics and assign milestones there, and also assign these issues to weekly iterations. We do team planning on a weekly basis. Just earlier today, we had our weekly planning call, and in that call, we discuss what we've done and the issues that are still left on the board. That's also nice that you can create Kanban boards on GitLab for these issues, even cross-repository Kanban boards and things like that. And we decide which tasks we are going to add to the next week's iteration. And apart from that, we mostly communicate asynchronously, so there are no daily stand-ups or something like that. In a team as small as ours, daily stand-ups would be overkill. And so instead of that, we do daily status posts to our Slack, where mostly at the end of the day we summarize what we got done, what we got stuck on, and things like that, so people stay in the loop of what's making progress and what doesn't. So, product management. Okay. Let's go deeper into engineering then. Let's see. If we talk about ops in my case, then maybe the infrastructure page is the most fitting. We are also product development. Yeah, that's an important point to make, I guess, for GitLab. Try to get it in the open source project first rather than later, even if it's 2 times harder. Respect. If that is actually practiced, and I guess you have to take all these public runbooks with a grain of salt, but let's assume active intent here. At Gitlab, we have a handbook first policy. It's how we communicate process changes and how we build up a single source of truth for work that is being delivered every day. That's something we as our team could adopt more. And I guess that definitely lies with me as a leader as well, to make sure that our practices are properly documented and communicated. We definitely can improve in that regard. But yeah, I shouldn't get sidetracked too much here. I'm still looking for project management practices. Of course I can. Let me check. That's, I guess... that should be better. De nada. A Jira shop, huh? You don't seem to be too happy about that. And to be honest, I still have to find someone who is actually happy about using Jira as a work tracking tool. It's really the proverbial management overhead product, I guess. Ooh, no, I can relate. Oh dear, I can relate because, I'm always confused when suddenly a lot of J's and K's appear in the stuff that I'm typing. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I can imagine pressing escape to exit input mode. If that actually makes the form disappear without even a confirmation step, that's terrible. I guess that must be a nightmare for both people who are used to using Vim and owners of cats. So let's see, these are just general issue trackers. Infrastructure issue queue. That goes directly to the issue queue. And then there's the incidents, and there's delivery and scalability. Am I interested in infrastructure issue queue? I was confused for a second there because I didn't want to just see issues with the infrastructure, but I guess issue queue is basically a synonym for ticket system here. And so I think that's the practical side of what I'd like to see. Let's open that up. I think that was where I ended up when I took a closer look at an incident tracker from Gitlab when they had some kind of an incident a week or two ago. And yeah, let's take a look at that first issue here. Migrate Thanos staging to ops. Currently, our Thanos staging instance is set up in our pre-environment. However, due to current network setup, it does not have the ability to easily connect to some of our Prometheus sidecars, which results in us being able to test changes, but not provide a one-to-one query experience. As we plan to move primarily to remote write going forward, it's better we move the staging instance to ops rather than add additional network complexity to pre. And so there are a few linked items. Move recording rules from Prometheus to Thanos ruler. That's in the scalability issue queue. And there's a draft merge request. Okay. We haven't been using draft merge requests much yet. So I'd like to see why this is a draft and what this draft is about. Started to draft to move the existing staging instance to ops. It will require a couple of updates via config management as well before this can merge. And then there are labels. Which team? Oh, okay. That's also an idea. Because I did create different repositories for separate issue queues, but in the end, I think we could actually merge those issue queues and simply distinguish stuff using these labels, especially these scoped labels where there can only be one team scoped label. And in this case, for GitLab, it's the reliability team, could also be the scalability team. Workflow infra is a scoped label as well. In this case, it's in the ready state. The service is Thanos. So I guess these issues can't be cross-service. If you have multiple affected services, how do you then assign labels? Reliability P3, okay. That's more of a common label. If you priority, reliability of the issue, that's also an interesting aspect. Okay. Then there was assignment, description changed. It was previously assigned to the observability team. There's a related issue that we already saw above. Okay. So this is actually pretty simple still. They listed a few details. That looks like it's coming from a template because it's not filled out. Interesting. Let's get rid of that notification here. And let's take a look at another issue here, just to get a feeling for how this, how the philosophy behind these issues looks like. Oh, but I need to get some water first. Let's see. That looks interesting. Availability improvement, automated or EOC initiated rollback of last deployment based on time correlation. That sounds like an interesting feature, first of all, but it also sounds like it's going to be a little bit more complex. So let's see if this ticket or this issue reflects this complexity. There's a summary about this. There are incidents related, leading, I guess, to this suggestion, desired outcome. So I guess that's a different kind of template here. It's more of a product feature. So maybe we can even take a look at the different templates they have in this repository. Desired outcome, associated services, nothing. Corrective action, issue checklist. So they work with simple text-based checklists here, at least to set the issue up initially. And it seems like they track most ancillary work in related issues. And maybe let's... Oh, no, these are the comments. So there wasn't much of activity yet. There's the corrective action label added, team service, workflow infra, severity and reliability assignments of labels. Work is incident, so it's incident related, I see. And then there is some kind of a discussion in the comments, which is also nice to see. Oh, there's more activity. Activity is interspersed with comments. I didn't realize that. Okay. Still looks quite manageable. Introduce Terraform workflow for creating new pipelines and config management. Interesting. Also related to an incident or an incident review in this case. That's an interesting aside here, since Team Foundations has an OKR to improve the overall workflow for Terraform next quarter. So they actually not only use OKR to track stuff, but also to plan their work. It may make sense to not address this now and instead go with a more holistic approach. Because this, okay, it's assigned to Team Foundations, so I guess Igor here is a member of that Foundations team, and so if there is an objective to improve the overall Terraform workflow, they might postpone the Terraform specific stuff here to next quarter. Okay. Yeah, I can see why this makes sense. Come on, isn't there a more complex thing where, well, I'm not sure what I'm expecting here, actually. Update the Scale-up Patroni and recreate a standby cluster run book to clean. Oh, okay, that's maybe not that interesting. So there's no further explanation here. Oh, it says this work item is not available. Looks like it's an internal. It's marked as confidential. So only the title and a bit of the metadata here is visible. But still, I would assume that means that GitLab has technical debt too. Okay, one last issue that I'll look at is this one: improve snapshot monitoring for scheduled snapshots. It occurred to me how rudimentary our snapshot monitoring is in the recent incident where we needed to restore Gitlab from snapshots. What we do now is look for missing snapshots in any environment, though we don't have the resolution of being able to see if one file node is missing a snapshot. It looks like we can add label abstractors to log-based metrics. This should allow us to get the disk name, which will allow us to have per disk alerts. And then there are a few checklist items with links to merge requests and issues. Or they reference runbooks as well. Interesting. Set staging to match production. Confirm. I like this low-level approach here to track these things in a simple checklist instead of going overboard with subtasks and related items and issues and things like that. Keeping things simple is an important principle, I think. It points to a very pragmatic approach on GitLab side there, that they don't force using tasks and other GitLab features, and instead take a more sensible approach. Okay. So what do I take away from this? First of all, I think it's important to use labels to provide important meta information. To actually discuss things within these issues as comments. GitLab is well known to be a remote company and an asynchronous first company, not only a remote only company, I guess, not even remote first, but remote only, and also asynchronous, because their staff definitely spans many time zones. And so being able to do these discussions in the comment section of such an issue is an important thing. And even though my team isn't spread that much, we are only based in Ireland and in Germany, and so we have only a difference of 1 time zone, 1 hour. It's still important to respect people's time and freedom of scheduling their work however they like. And that's why I'd like to... that's why I'd like to make asynchronous communication our default approach. So that's another thing. I haven't paid attention to how they use milestones, iterations, and these things. Is that something that gets used? Let's go back to one of these more mature items. No, there's nothing like that. Maybe we'll take a look at one of the many closed ones. That might actually yield more information. Issues that have been progressed through to their finish. Let's see. Run a scenario for restoring a Postgres rapidly investigate, corrective action. Run books. That's also an interesting thing, a discussion issue. Can we peek in there? Details. I guess that's kind of an RFC. Okay. There wasn't actually too much discussion there. As far as I know, we have already decided to upgrade Hedgehog Proxy as the highest priority to resolve the end-of-life issue in 8.3.9. Simultaneously, we have already had discussions about alternatives. Okay, so this discussion wasn't actually really necessary. That explains why the issue was finished quite quickly. How about this? quota saturation monitoring. I hope this wasn't too trivial of a task. Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's hard to derive the how from the what, because we are only seeing the what here. So that's why I wanted to find a handbook or something like that that actually explains the workflow. Maybe let's go back here. Projects. Classification of the infrastructure department. Projects is described on the infrastructure department projects page. Makes sense. Infrastructure issue tracker is the backlog and a catch-all project for the infrastructure teams, and tracks the work our teams are doing unrelated to an ongoing change or incident. So changes are tracked elsewhere. Interesting. I'm not interested in incidents because these are very specific work items. I'd like to see the more general approach they take to assigning work and things like that. In addition to tracking the backlog, infrastructure department projects are captured in our infrastructure department epic. Interesting. As well as in our quarterly objectives and key results. Okay, that makes sense as well. If they use OKR, those should be actually connected to the implementation. So let's take a look at the projects page if that's available. Infrastructure department uses GitLab projects to operate gitlab.com and supporting services. Okay. This page aims to provide a clear definition of a project. Type, data classification, canonical and mirror locations, ownership and access. Types. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. That's more detailed information because they differentiate projects between workload. Projects that span multiple teams and departments often contain information that can be sensitive or are mission critical at runtime, frequently customer impacting. Okay. Exegete asked, wonder how well auto DevOps works for GitLab itself. Yeah, I'm not sure if they use that much because I think they have the capacity of building custom and bespoke CI processes and workflows, I would assume. And I guess at an application that size, auto DevOps might actually not really apply. Yeah, I mean, you're right. Dog fooding is definitely one of their mottos. And I guess, at least initially, it might work. But I would expect them to build custom stuff quite quickly for each of their projects and infrastructure components. So let's see, workload, that's more of a feature library that support workloads. Generally do not contain sensitive information, but can process sensitive information. Then there's tooling I guess, for internal use, projects that support automation around library and application management, and general day-to-day project maintenance. Then team, projects that are supporting team workflows, team automation and processes. And then there's WIP, used in a sandbox, proof of concept, or one-off automation. Cannot process production workloads until graduating to a different type of project. So I guess that's I guess in order of maturity, with workload being the most mature and work in progress being more of a spike or an experiment. Then we have data classification. Projects contain code/data that can, amongst other things, expose access to individuals that wouldn't have access as part of their role. Okay, yep. Private, and then there's public. Canonical locations. That's something that is a good idea to define. Infrastructure department workflows are split through a number of GitLab instances. To dogfood our project, but also to support our general workflows. In general, we have two instances that are used by the infrastructure department to support day-to-day workflows, gitlab.com and ops.gitlab.net. So the ops departments have their own GitLab instance. Interesting. And I would assume that ops.gitlab.net is something internal and not open to the public. Yeah, to operate and run gitlab.com, we use ops.gitlab.net. We use ops.gitlab.net to mirror all required dependencies, but also to run mission-critical projects. Let's see. These issues are based on gitlab.com itself. They're not running on ops. Okay. GitLab.com synchronization tooling mirrors the project to the second location. Yeah, exactly. It's a separate GitLab instance. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Access policy, interesting. Ops for workloads is restricted and only access on the department level, while private and public workloads have company or even community access. Okay, the same goes for libraries and toolings. Restricted is department, but public is community, and tooling is, if it's public, also community. That's interesting, and that reflects the thing that we read earlier about defaulting to community. Good stuff. Workflow. Now we're cooking. GitLab projects have various features that make our work easier to accomplish. At its core, our workflows usually consist of project management, with issues, epics, and issue boards, code collaboration, merge requests with peer reviews, testing and deployment, CI and CD pipelines. Okay. As an example of a project that has processes, sensitive information, that processes, I guess there's an extraneous has in there, that processes sensitive information at runtime, but has code that can be accessible to public. The following GitLab features that can be leveraged to support the workflow can be found in the table below. So the resource, the instance is ops.gitlab.net with the gitlab.com as a mirror. Visibility, private, internal. Issues on the mirror are enabled. Okay, I'm not sure how to read that. Merge requests are... I'm not sure what the difference between canonical and mirror is, how that's differentiated. This means that a project that has a canonical repository on ops.gitlab.net and has the least privileged access at runtime can still be public on gitlab.com. The source code can be mirrored to gitlab.com, where the issues can be raised. That makes sense. You want the issues to where people have access. And discussed development through merge requests that require CI, and deployment would only be enabled on ops. In this example, we show that we can ensure that we can deliver results efficiently and safely, because the actual delivery happens on the canonical side, where we have merge requests and pipelines and everything. But mostly the end result is exposed to the public, and that includes issue tracking. Okay. That's also an interesting aspect of these things, because even though we don't have the capacity at the moment to really make lots of our stuff open source, I really would like to. And so having this example of how this can actually work with the implementation running internally and then the publication to the community, that's definitely something I'll keep in mind. Project organization. Top-level group is named infrastructure, and it contains all projects, so they work with groups. That's also important here. Top-level group is named infrastructure, and it contains all projects that the infrastructure department uses for their day-to-day work. So all these projects are on the group level. The group is not named GitLab Infra because existing groups already exist with that name, and from the name and the location it is clear that it's related to GitLab. Okay, access to this group is only granted to the group owners and instance admins. So only group owners set up projects there, I guess. Access to the subgroups and projects in those subgroups is granted to specific team groups. Individual user accounts are not added to project subgroups outside of team groups. So everything is managed with team groups, which makes sense because otherwise it'll be a maintainability nightmare. So here's the infrastructure group, and then it splits into teams. In this case, delivery and observability. That's more or less the org chart here. Then there's the sandbox testing ground, testing POC, proof of concept. Tooling is apparently mostly the certificate uploader and slackline. Maybe these are only examples here, I guess. Libraries, modules, and Chef cookbooks. Yeah, GitLab does use Chef as well. And workloads, there are mission-critical workloads like Terraform, Chef repository, deployer, and Kubernetes as its own thing here that then again splits into... What's happening today? I'm a bit congested. Monitoring and gitlab.com. Okay. Choosing the right project workflow. I'll try and go more quickly through this. Even though I'm feeling a little bit tired. Maybe I should have made myself another coffee instead of just filling my water bottle. Maybe I should take a quick break and brew myself a coffee. You too, okay. Get better soon, Exegete. Mission critical project, sensitive at runtime. So these are just examples to make things easier for noobs. And I guess I'm not sure how much this would apply to a tiny team like mine. Because we definitely won't work with different GitLab instances where stuff is in part synced and in part not. Okay. Projects in the team group are projects that support specific team workflows, status gathering, project triage, and similar team-facing projects should be added here. Since these projects can contain team-sensitive information, their canonical location can be on Ops. This decision is at team's discretion. Makes sense to leave that with the individual organizational unit. Work in progress projects, which are, I think, more experiments. Projects located in the sandbox group are projects that might graduate into one of the above referenced workflows. Proof of concepts, quick scripts for one-off migrations, or scripts to support one-time maintenance would all belong in this group. Ah, okay. That's an interesting way to compartmentalize one-time stuff, of which we as an operations team have quite a bit. If the project will be reused periodically, it has to be migrated to one of the other groups before it is used. Yeah, makes sense. So they try to limit the amount of management overhead that goes into one-off stuff. On the other hand, if it turns out that it's not as one-off as expected, then it needs to follow the proper workflow and not get introduced as a provisionary thing that it then isn't. Okay, makes sense. Okay. So what else did we have? That was the reliability group. So reliability is under GL Infra, which is supposed to be infrastructure. Okay. Where did I open this from? I guess here. Yeah, I wanted to take a look at the infrastructure department epic. There's a single epic? Top level epic for the infrastructure department. The epic is used to show the work that is ongoing in planning and the work that has been completed as part of our strategies, as part of the department mission. The epic is an entry point for each team and should not contain individual projects. Okay, that might be a big company thing, but it's interesting to see how this works. So this splits into reliability and scalability. And Project Horse, whatever that is, sounds very mysterious. Direction, release velocity. These are sub-epics, looks like. So let's take a look at scaling GitLab on gitlab.com. Which is another epic, okay. Below the GitLab infrastructure team. Project work, and then this epic gets updated. And it has a due date of August 31st, which is not the end of a quarter. Or is it? No. No, it's not. And then there's topics which point to other epics. So it's a complete hierarchy of epics here. Okay. And these are apparently the actual projects. Make Sidekick SLIs explorable. GitLab SaaS availability reporting improvements. Capacity planning improvements. Interesting. I wonder how this is generated. That's a neat table here. Yeah, Sidekick is awesome. For our own Rails application, we still use Delayed Job as our job scheduling engine because, yeah, our demands aren't really anything special. But I'd like to make Sidekick our default queue management. Simply because it's so versatile and you can use it for small stuff as well as for huge stuff. And since it's also used in Mastodon, which I'm administering for geekdom.social, that's also something where gaining experience should have repeatable use. Okay. I see. So they differentiate by the workflow infra status. Some of these epics are in proposal state for the next iteration, and then there's ready. And what are these here? They are in progress. Okay. That's also an interesting way to do things. However, that approach with nested epics seems to first be a little bit of overkill for the little amount of projects we have ongoing at the same time, and our current GitLab plan doesn't even allow us to create nested epics anyway, so that's an interesting thing to see, but I guess this is all built into GitLab because that's not handmade here. Child issues and epics, and I would assume that even this here. No, I wouldn't know how to actually. This seems. On one hand, this seems quite difficult to build manually. On the other hand, it doesn't seem to be auto-generated as well. Strange. Okay, so let's close this. And then there's the projects thing again. And that's this main epic. Okay. Yeah, this has been updated for years now. Oh, okay. I will close this epic and move so it's not current anymore. Different structure for SaaS platforms. So that goes to a different epic. 4 months ago. Top level. There's a new top level epic here with no start and due dates. And this looks a little bit different. So it looks like these tables are actually maintained by hand. And these topics here then link to OKRs. So I guess that's the next thing I'd like to explore here. The quarterly objectives and key results. Summary. This epic is intended to track and create an index to all infrastructure department quarterly OKRs at the department level. financial year 22. Why isn't there a 23? And Ali.io? So they use an external software to track their cars. What's Ali? Let's see. Ali.io, right? I would assume it's an OKR tracking SaaS, but you can never be sure. Wait, what? Okay, that escalated quickly. Okay. But you can't track OKRs after the fact, so there needs to be some 2023 stuff. Viva Goals by Microsoft. Oh, no. Oh, I almost made the mistake of thinking GitLab was owned by Microsoft, but that's the other company. Interesting. And it actually seems even to employ typical SaaS pricing. It's not €560 per user per month. Still, I would be very reluctant to use that. In our case, I'd be pretty sure if we would track OKRs, we would track them in Notion. Okay, so this information seems to be outdated. However, what about these things here? GitLab, dedicated, switchboard. Let's see. This still links to GitLab.com, GitLab OKRs, work items. So now I'm in internal territory. No access. What a pity. But that would sidetrack us anyway. I'm not interested in how they do OKR at the moment, at least. So far, OKRs didn't work for us. I guess you need that if you have many departments and other. If your org chart doesn't fit on a single iPhone screen in a readable way. You're pushing about 10 DJs per second. I'm not sure what you mean by DJs. Don't push DJs. Some of them do really great work and put on really great tracks. But yeah, if they're like the DJ in Love Actually, you can push them. Delay jobs. Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah, I've had already left that context. About 10 delayed jobs per second. Yeah, that's reasonable. The rainy weather seems to be affecting me. What's the temperature in here? 25 degrees, okay. Metric clown car load? 10 delayed jobs? I mean, my Mastodon instance is sometimes pushing thousands of jobs per second. I really don't want to rain on your parade, though. No offense intended. This is really strange here. Are you, though? Are you really, though? I'm getting whiplash from how you switch from being completely facetious to being very philosophical. But I agree, yeah. As I already mentioned recently, it's much more effective to learn from failure and mistakes than to learn from successes. But because oftentimes you simply attribute your success to the wrong things, and if you then think you should simply repeat those, you're in for a surprise. Okay. Infrastructure office hours. That's interviewing. Join us for the interactive infrastructure office hours call. Monthly gathering held every second Tuesday of the month, which isn't today, I guess. Provides a platform for open dialogue between the infrastructure department and the rest of the company. Whether you have questions, blah, 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 blah. Check the infrastructure calendar in Google Calendar for exact times. The agenda for the meeting is available in Google Docs. So they do use Google Docs. Interesting. Call is live streamed onto the Gitlab Unfiltered channel, which is actually on YouTube. Huh. Interesting. Oh dear. Oh, let's reject all. Product marketing meeting, product team meeting, virtual meetup. That doesn't seem to be used anymore. That's a pity. They also had 23k subscribers, but yeah, looks like it's not used anymore.
Oh, the first day that we signed up for Monday.com, our department.
Did I just click on an ad? Okay. All right, I guess we've spent enough time looking into GitLab's project management approach. I'll take the inspiration I got from this and spend some time thinking about how we can apply some of these things effectively for ourselves and which things we'll leave to GitLab, because they simply don't apply to our small team. All right. So that's that. Okay, I guess, yeah, it's time to take a little bit of a break, just to let my chair cool off a little. And I'll be back in a few minutes, and then we'll do some work around Rails translations. So I'll see you soon. All right. Let me switch gear here. Let's do some loggy ini stuff. Touch some UB keys. Page not found. Okay, yeah, it's trying to access Gitlab's Gitlab. All right. The UB key, exactly. They're really nice pieces of technology. I do like them. As a second factor. I haven't tried passkeys a single time yet. Yeah, same. I'd like to see how they work. And if they actually simplify things in a significant way. I mean, I'm pretty happy with one password, I'll be honest. So that's why I haven't tried passkeys yet. And maybe passkeys are also not as practical on Linux, I'm not sure. So I haven't had yet much incentive to try them, but simply to be aware of alternatives, I should probably look into them. Okay, so let's see. Here we go. So let's try and create a new issue with what I described earlier. As usual, the tech behind them is interesting, essentially SSH keys with a cool UI. Yeah. I mean, yeah, the main thing is probably key management. But the interesting thing is that there's nothing stored on the machine related to the UB key. So the UB key itself simply adds another factor to your other account credentials. But I haven't looked too closely into all that stuff. Oh, passkeys. Okay, okay. SSH keys with a cool UI. Uh-huh. So you would... Oh, I see. I think I can imagine what you mean. So basically, you use a passphrase that then activates a private key. And by activating that private key, you get access. And the other side then has the public key, simply to verify or to pose a challenge. Ah, interesting. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. If the website uses your public key that it got when you set up the passkey, creates a challenge that you can only solve with your private key, your corresponding private key, and you also have to enter a passphrase to enable your private key, then it gives you access. So it's public key authentication for websites. Huh. Yeah. That's one of these obvious solutions, isn't it? Okie dokie. So let's create an issue that describes what I'd like to solve. In this case, input form errors use... how do I describe this? Humanized column names. So form error messages like org city can't be blank aren't great. In terms of UX, is there a way to replace those with better wording, for example, using the translation feature in Rails? I'll assign that to me, and I'll make this a UI issue. It's I guess it's more of a cleanup. It's not really a bug. It's workable, but it's not ideal. And since I'm working on this week, let's assign it to this week's iteration. And since it'll get on our project board, this way we'll assign it to an epic, which is called ongoing maintenance. That's the catch-all epic for stuff that needs to be done, but doesn't have its own project. So let's create this issue, okay. And then we can actually switch to the dashboard project, which will probably fail spinning up tests because I probably have my course website running. No, I don't. There isn't even a third screen. Okay, that's good. That means test should run successfully. Let's see. Yeah, the web application has already spun up. That's great. And merge that. How are these error messages implemented? Well, so I don't forget, we are in the main branch at the moment. Let's pull latest changes. Okay, we are up to date. And now let's create a branch for this issue, which is issue number 684. Let me make this a little bit easier to read for you too. I should actually simply increase the font size for this whole browser. Yeah, let's do that. I think I can do that from... So let's zoom back to 100%, but change these settings. Fonts, let's choose a font size not of 16, but make it 20. And default zoom 100%. So if I reload this, does this change? Yeah, okay. That should be a little bit more readable for you. So that's that. 684. Let's create a new branch. Git checkout -b 684. We'll call that form errors. So all the changes we make from now on will automatically be in this branch, and GitLab will actually assign this branch to the issue automatically, which is great. Let me also get a full screen projector going over there. Okay. No, that's not what I meant. Wait, what did I do? Here. Full screen projector for the preview. Okay, that's better. Grand. Actually, and then I can actually disable this preview, even though my machine isn't really working heavily. Good. So that's the branch. Now I'd like to take a look at the code, and that's in app components, and it's in the Tailwind form component namespace. Let's make this a little smaller so we can see the file names. And then there's the container component, I guess, where we actually list these things. And there's already a translation errors, messages not saved. So I guess, where do we have the translations? That's in config locales, right? There's an en YAML, and there needs to be a hierarchy errors, messages not saved. Let's see, there is no errors, because there are no custom translations, I guess. Is this still driven by simple form? I don't think so. Simple form was what I used before, but now that we've switched to Tailwind, we can actually get rid of that. So that's apparently the translation that's already built into Rails. So let's see, Rails default locale. Why not take a look at the i18n guide here? Ensure you have support, tell Rails where to find local dictionaries, and so on and so on. Okay. Every static string in the Rails framework, validation messages, that's what we're talking about, I guess, has been internationalized. And so we can simply use i18n.t for translate or L for localize. Following the convention of a configuration philosophy, Rails internationalization provides reasonable default translation strings. And when different translation strings are needed, they can be overridden. Okay. Default en YAML local in this directory contains a sample pair. Seen that. This means that in the en locale, the key hello will map to the hello world string. Each string inside Rails is internationalized in this way. See, for instance, active model validation messages in the active model lib, active model locale en YAML file, which we'll take a look at. And here, that's actually the main branch. Yep. So can I search for error here? No, that wasn't what I meant. GitHub has its own search. That clashed with my Vimium setup. So let's do that. Errors. Just error. No, there's actually errors. Errors? What was it again? No. Let's see, where's my container? Errors, messages not saved. So errors, messages. This is again pretty small, huh? Messages. Model invalid. Not saved is probably not active model, but active record. Does active record have its own stuff? There's active support for file for time and date formats. Does active record has its own thing? Probably has, but still. That's just the is too long. So where does the actual field name come in? That's the resource here. And account. So I guess we'll take a look at active record. There should be active record lib, active record locale or something like that. So let's go to Rails. Active record lib, active record locale en YAML. Errors, messages. Nope. Huh. We are in a form context. Is that active support? Rails forms. Action view form. Okay, so that's action view actually. Okay, fine. So let's go close this. Interestingly, wait, we are in Rails. Okay, so that's actually Rails itself. I was confused for a second there because I had this tree view, and I thought action view and action text and all these things would be different repositories. So, no errors here. Okay, I thought that would be simpler to find out. Then let's do a search. Rails i18n form errors. Maybe we should go back to the Rails guide. Oh, I don't even have Vimium activated in this profile of my browser. Okay. We should actually remedy that. Let's do that quickly because it'll allow me to use keyboard navigation. So let's see. Extensions. Yeah, so far I only have one password and simple tab groups. So I guess let's look for Vimium. It was Vimium C. And add that. Yes, please. Now. i18n is always kind of confusing, though not as bad as when I put it all into active record and demolished performance. Yeah, I can see how that does have its cost. Yeah, for me it's especially confusing since I never... yeah, this is practically the first time that I am dealing with translations in Rails. A comprehensive Rails internationalization guide. Interesting. Yeah, I can see why this would be provided by a company named Phrase. They are probably specialized in internationalization. Providing more translations. Mm-hmm. Localized views. Translations for active record. Yeah, that's all a little bit too detailed for my level at the moment. Let's see. There's a Dev2 article, Basics of Rails i18n. Translating active record errors. That's more along the lines of what I'm looking for. Oh, accessing model and attribute translations. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So I can actually provide human attribute names. For example, for org city, you can use symbols or strings. And so that's how I look it up. How do I define it though? By using active record, attributes, model name, field name. Oh, that's amazing. That's exactly what I need. Thank you, author whose name I'll have to find out. All right, so I'll simply add that to my file, active record. Attributes, and then in this case it's company. But first let's get our application on screen anyway. So localhost, I guess 3000 in this case. Yes, here we are. Nope, that's not what I want. I want my email is customer@example.com and the password is customer123. Yes, please remember me. Did it cross that off? Why isn't it visible? Okay, and now if I go into organization details and try and update my company details, city is already empty. That is probably a customer that I already tried in this context. So city is empty because I managed to sneak that past our validation logic. And if I try and submit this, I'll get the error message, org city can't be blank. And this should probably be named company address city. And by going into my locale file, we should be able to do this. So it's en, wait, not a, want to do a C, active record, attributes, company, org, city, let's call it company address city. So if I try and submit this again, it says company address city can't be blank. Is that Copilot giving you completion? Yes, it is. I didn't actually pay attention to what it was suggesting me, but in my experience, it's spookily accurate in the things that it does. I've been recently doing both a lot of writing in Markdown for my Linux course, and I can only explain its behavior by that it actually had access to David Both's books, which we are using for the Linux course, because it eerily accurately predicted what I was trying to type next, especially in bullet lists. And it's also great at writing shell scripts. I've started using shell scripts here for my stream. Instead of calling simple commands from my stream deck, I'm now simply calling shell scripts, which do stuff like play a media file and wait for 10 seconds for it to finish and then make it invisible again and things like that. And it makes things so much easier. For example, many of these scripts need an argument, and I just have to write if -n, which means test if the following variable does actually have content, and by typing -n, I get already the full auto-completion for the whole if block. So if this variable is empty, for example, then echo an error message, can't be empty, and exit one. I don't yet use it for having it build code for me, but as an auto-completion mechanism, it's already great. I'm not sure if I'll ever use it beyond that auto-completion, that intelligent auto-completion feature, but that alone is worth the admission, I think. Because it can, at least with trivial stuff, predict whole code blocks that I'm about to write, because I keep repeating myself with these code blocks. These are pretty much boilerplate anyway. And so instead of creating my own Vim snippets that I need to memorize how to call and things like that, I'll simply rely on Copilot to autocomplete stuff for me. So yeah, that's great. That was easily solved, and I guess now it's just busy work of adding all these fields to the autocompletion. Let's do that for the company model and for the website model. Those are the most important ones and the most used ones, I would expect. And getting the field names for those shouldn't be too hard, because I'm using the annotate gem. So simply by going into model company, I guess we'll simply copy. Yeah, let's copy all that stuff. We won't use all of it, but that's that. Let's go back here, paste that in. I guess we'll munch that a little by saying, please substitute a leading comment sign with one or more spaces, and replace that by nothing. Is it bad form to put memes in my in my pull requests, saying it's fine? I do too. As I said earlier on Discord, these things simply add flavor and make things more fun. I mean, there's a limit when which you shouldn't cross and overdo things, but yeah, I think a little bit of humor is definitely something we can all use. Okay, so let's get rid of everything in here that starts with a colon. And that means we'll substitute a colon followed by anything with nothing. That's that. And now let's get rid of these things that we don't want to translate anyway. So these are the timestamps. Stripe stuff, that's internal stuff. I don't think we'll ever input these things. Org address, yes. City, billing address, city, zip code, and so on. VAT ID, that's definitely something we should translate. Billing MISC, whatever that is. That's internal and that's internal. So that leaves us with these things here. Let's indent them correctly and sort them appropriately. So let's go and put the billing email here. So it starts with tech email. Then we have, oh, I see, tech email and billing email. These are different email addresses that we'll keep up there. And then we have the addresses for organization and for billing address. And finally, the VAT ID. So let's, we'll also need to get rid of the trailing white space, but that's easy by simply saving. And I have Vim automatically strip stuff. And yeah, here you can see the magic that is Copilot. So all I have to type is tab to select the suggestion and enter, and that's that. Let's put a colon here. Billing contact email. Yes, thank you. Company address line 1. Perfect. Thank you. Oops. So if I don't make mistakes myself, it's just accepting Copilot suggestions. And that makes busy work so much fun. I'm not gonna lie. There are still the ethical implications back in my mind, making me feel a little bit guilty, but come on, I mean, the amount of time this saves. And I guess that's not something that is related to copyright or what is called intellectual property or something. Let's see what it does with VAT ID. Yep, that's grand. And that's that. I just used my cursor keys at the tab key and the colon key. Okie dokie. So if I go back to my form here, let's also remove the address here, address line 1. That should be required, I guess. Yep, company address line 1 can't be blank, company address city can't be blank. It doesn't actually show the required attribute here, which I probably should do, because that then will allow a more quick evaluation or validation, I think. Yep, because then the form itself displays, please fill out this field. So that's something that we should change, actually. So if address 1 is required, we should actually mark the field as required. That's something we need to change in the form itself. So that is company, nope, let's do a views, company edit or company form. And here we actually say company name is required. And that's, let's put this here. And then I guess city is required too. Postal code should be required. Country, a county, or well, county shouldn't be required, I think, because every country has one. So let's delete this until here. But now we'll do the same here. Tech email should be required. Billing email should be required. VAT ID is optional. The billing address line 1 should be required. Does Europe have the concept of provinces rather than state? That's different from country to country. There's no Europe-wide method here. Ireland, for example, has provinces, but they're I think almost only used for sports matches. And then it does have counties, And so there is a county Dublin, for example, which mainly consists of Dublin, of course. And south of that, that's County Wicklow, where I'm based in. By specifying city, are you overriding the international name? I probably am, but do you think that's a problem? Yeah, so I think, Germany, for example, has states that are in part politically independent from the federation. So each country has its own approach here. We need a zip code or something like that. We need... No, we don't. And we definitely need a country. What do you mean my errors won't match my form? This is the city column, which is also labeled as city. And it says company address city and billing address city. So I'm not really sure. Am I not seeing the forest for the trees again? In the meantime, let's try this out. Let's reload the form. And now we have required signs all over the place. Interestingly, yeah, the country... Why doesn't the country have a required field here? So it wants me to fill this out. So let's say city is London. And now let's go here. It says postal code. Yeah, okay. 1, 2, 3. Can we save this now? And now it says we need a postal code here as well. Do we though? Maybe I shouldn't go overboard with doing that. Let's take a look at the model again. And the validations that I'm using here. So we need a name, an address, a city, a country. We don't even need a zip code. Okay. Maybe we should require one, but we didn't run into any issues yet, so maybe it isn't necessary. So address, line 1, city and country. That's all. Okay. So let's go back to our form. And strip this down. City, zip code is not actually required. State is not required, but country is. Okay. Actually, let's go back. People tended to like having the labels on the form match exactly to the errors. That is actually a good idea. And that's something that we could change. Well, I should probably actually change that here. Yeah, you're right. So let's go back to the locales. We said company address and billing address. And then company address, city, etc., etc. So let's go up to the company part. So that's company name. company address line 1. So the thing is, since I built that using Tailwind CSS, and I simply copied an example from Tailwind UI, that's why I ended up having the labels defined separately from the actual fields here. So, and for example here, the line 2 doesn't even have its own label. And that's why I now have to duplicate these strings. I could change my components that generate these forms to use labels, the labels that are actually defined with the text field, like I do here. Here I'm actually passing in a label, but that doesn't have any effect, I think. So it's actually ineffective, and yeah, I could change this to something different, and it would probably still show city, the company address city here. Let's prove that. So I say company address city. If I change the logic that builds my forms and adds the necessary stuff in the actual form HTML with the CSS, then we could use the label that either comes with the text field or use the implicit translation of the text field now. That wasn't possible before I added these locale strings, and that would eliminate this duplication that I have to do now. So let's replace that with company address postal code. And I guess that should be also be replaced here. Postal code here as well. Company address postal code. So even though here we have an additional label city, that should get ignored. It still says company address city. And just to avoid confusion, I guess I should also delete this. So that's that. Then we have, let's use substitute here, company address state/county, which is a little bit easier to understand for people living in different countries. And that means we do the same here and say that's not country, but county. And that's finally then company address country. Let's make these same changes to the billing details. Email address, VAT ID. That's company address line 1. Well, in this case, we'll simply call it no, that's billing address. And let's go up here and make sure I didn't write. Yeah, I shouldn't write line 1 if line 2 is right below it without any label. So that's that. So that's billing address. And that's not company city, that's billing address city. That's billing address postal code. GUI. Yep, yeah, cool. Billing address state/county and billing address country. Okay, let's take a look how this looks. Company name, company address, address city, address postal code, address state, county and country, technical contact, billing details, email address, VAT ID, billing address city, billing address postal code, billing address state, country, state, county and billing address country. Yep, okay. Exit sheet asked, have you seen Tenderloaf's keynote with Rails LSP in it? No, I haven't yet. I saw that RailsCon videos were uploaded, and I'm not sure if I saw actually that Tenderloaf did a keynote. So I should look this up and put it on my reading list. That's something that I'll definitely do. And then actually it asked, if you just delete the string, let's see. If you just delete the string, will Rails fill it in for you? Not in the way that it's done right now. Where are we? Because labels and text fields are not connected at the moment. I mean, we could try and leave this string off. I mean, I did name it billing country, which is the column name. Let's see how this works. Let's remove this and see what happens if I reload this form. Will there be a label? Yes, there will. Okay. Dude, why didn't you ask that earlier? Just kidding. Ah, thanks for the link. Because I went through the RailsCon videos and clicked those that interested me, where there was an actual video link. Not all of the talks seem to have recordings, especially not the workshops. But had I seen that there was a keynote by Tenderloaf, I would surely add that to my read it later list, or in this case, watch it later list. So we don't actually need these strings anymore now that we've actually added proper local strings for these attributes. That's amazing. That will save such a lot of work. I love that. So delete till here. Delete till here. I guess that's just the... Well, we leave that here, billing address, because I need to override billing address 1. But we can remove that. Let's make sure that everything is still working. Nope. What happened to VAT ID? Now it's just called VAT. that's probably because I mistyped this. No, it's... Oh, yeah, I mistyped VIT ID, I guess. Is that just VAT ID? Yes, it is. No underscore. Okay. So that even exposes typos here. Now it's called VIT ID. I love it. And of course, yeah, that makes sense because providing strings in your form wouldn't work if I wanted to translate this to multiple different locales. I'm not going to internationalize this application anytime soon, but simply having these strings in there does make things easier. That's the same here, so we can delete this. And this. And this. And this. I guess that alone was worth it. I mean, I already resolved my original issue with the error messages. But now I'm catching two birds with one stone. I guess name, did we translate name? No. Why not? Shouldn't we translate name? Let's see. Yeah, we should. Name should be something that we actually translate, which means that I can also remove that. So apart from company address that encompasses two fields, we don't need any label strings anymore. Let's see how the form looks like. Oh. Why is there something broken now? What did I do? I didn't notice breaking anything. Did I delete something by accident? Cannot load translations. Syntax error. Did not find expected key for name. Huh? Everything else works. Oh, that's because I did not. I probably accidentally deleted the closing quote. Okay. Yep. We still have a working form, company name, address, address city, address postal code, state country, address country. Same for billing contact email, VIT ID, billing address, address city, address postal code, state county, country. Brilliant. I love it. Brilliant. Okay. So, let's commit this and submit a merge request. Let's see. We did actually only change two files here, adding the translations to the local file and then change the company form. So let's commit that. I guess it was a chore. but a worthwhile one. Add attribute. Well, let's call it i18n. No, 18. And strings for company attributes. This not only fixes the issue with hard to, well, let's call it ambiguous field names in form error messages. It also allowed me to remove label strings from the form itself. And we can say this fixes, yeah, it's a fix. So it's actually a fix, huh? Fixes number 684. So it's not only a chore, it's actually a fix because it's a UI issue. That is sad. And while we're already here, let's do the same for website, which feels a little bit like a chore, to be honest, and I'm not getting more energized by the minute. It's probably also because there's 25 degrees in here. So, will I do this on stream? Will I do this later? Not sure. Let's see. Thanks for the hint, Exegete. You were the person who triggered that. If you just delete the string, will Rails fill it in for you? Yes, it does. The answer is yes. And then a little bit of context. If anyone is unfamiliar with Aaron, his full name is Aaron Patterson, and he goes by Tenderlove, and his keynotes, they're amazing. Though I didn't see his cat this time, which makes me wonder if Kitty is okay. Yeah, he always has a slide with his cat in it, doesn't he? And yeah, he's a genius. He is a great member of the Rails core team, and he's a great developer, but he's also funny as heck. And I love his humor, and humor combined with competence is always something that I love. So, and if then even cats come into play, then that's perfect. But that's why I wonder why I didn't see his session in the Rails lineup, RailsConf lineup. But we still have it, and but I'm not sure that I can copy that. So let's go into Discord, and where's our stream chat? Here we go. Oops, no, it scrolled. I hate it when stuff scrolls away under my mouse. Copy link. Here we go. And then let's go into my browser here. You can't see that, but I have to go into a browser where I actually have the Readwise extension loaded, and here's his YouTube talk and added to my queue. Thank you. And that I just accidentally opened the tab with my Mastodon sidekick queue. We are processing around 100 jobs per second, I'd say. Did my first Mastodon upgrade yesterday because it was urgently necessary. Because there have been security fixes that forced me to finally do that upgrade. And it's really, really strange because I was so avoiding this upgrade because I hadn't done a Mastodon upgrade before. And of course, I had read the documentation, which clearly shows that it's not different from any other Rails upgrade, Rails application upgrade. You simply take the new code, maybe run database migrations and update your precompiled assets. And that's basically it. And then you simply restart your application. But I was dreading this update. And I kept pushing it and pushing it and pushing it until people actually started to ask me in private, don't you intend to install these upgrades? So I needed to be pushed into this upgrade. And that's really, really strange to see how much reluctance, how much resistance I had against upgrading that. And yes, it took me a while. It took about 40 minutes all in all. But that was including a backup of the database, which took the longest part of these 40 minutes. Geekdom.social has a 5 gigabyte database. And so that took a pretty while to simply dump to disk. And that also includes me making notes for future upgrades. And so future upgrades should be much, much quicker. And most of the time I won't even have to take down the website for it, which I did yesterday. I actually stopped geekdom.social for these 40 minutes, and just so that I have a consistent backup, and so just to avoid any kind of risk. But turns out that most of the time you can do these upgrades while the site is still running, and you simply restart or even just reload some of the services involved. So it should run much, much smoother. But I just wanted to share how strange it looked to myself that I was so resistant against doing the Mastodon upgrade yesterday. No, over the recent months, actually, not yesterday. Yesterday I finally did it. XCD wrote Rails forms and simple form are amazing pieces of work, underrated feature of good web frameworks. I can see that now, actually, that they're not just a little bit of code around HTML elements. And, for example, having this neat little way of managing locales, that definitely will make things easier, because now I don't have to manually make sure that field labels do match the error messages, because now they are taken from the same source, and that's brilliant. And that just confirms that it's worth spending this time doing a live stream, because there are amazing people who point you in the right direction and share their experience, as I do share mine. And so that's what I love about this community of engineers, developers, system administrators, live streamers. Today, and actually for the recent weeks, I really always was looking forward to starting my stream. And if it wasn't right after my lunch break, I would actually start streaming earlier most of these days, because they're so much fun. Okay, so let's try and get some second wind here and do the same refactoring to our website's form as well. Here we go. I did a commit, right? So let's make sure that... Oh yeah, Now that we've changed a few of the labels, I might actually have to adapt a few of the tests. There might be breaking tests now. So let's fix that before we go into something else. Because some of the integration tests might actually address fields by their label and not by their name. Maybe not. Maybe I was clever enough not to use labels and instead used column names symbols. Yeah, apparently I did. Okay, fair enough. So let's go, that's the right file here. We'll simply go here. Wait, what happened? Are you suggesting stuff that I don't need? Yeah. So let's go to website. And of course, we'll open model website. Let's also grab most of these fields and throw out what we don't need. Actually, right, even labeling the fields as having an error is such a boon to productivity. Yep. Definitely. So wait, we can simply paste this in, and now we'll do the same transformations that we did earlier. So I should be able to recall that. Remove all the comment signs. And can I get this back? Yes, GW gives me back my selection here. So I can run the second substitution that removed everything after the colon, and we can even refine that by saying also everything, all the white space that is in front of it. That's that. Let's go up here. Apache config, that's internal. Database count limit is internal. DB cluster is internal. That's not going to be used in forms. Doc root is. Environment is. Box type is internal. That's internal. Main domain is used. PHP version, yeah. But it's going to be runtime version, but we haven't implemented that. Well, yeah, there's runtime too, so let's keep these. Runtime site number, that's internal, that's internal, that's internal. Status, internal. Varnish config is internal. Webmaster is the webmaster email address. We should use that. Timestamps aren't necessary. Client ID, cluster ID. Let's keep these in, even though they are internal, but they are so central that it does make sense to maybe have the translation for that in there. And those are not necessary. So let's grab these and indent them properly. I'm not going to sort them in any particular order. Document root, let's call it document root folder or directory. Let's not be too Mac OS-ish. Environment is the environment name. So let's use that and simply add a name. Main domain definitely is main domain. PHP version is PHP version. Can use that. And in this case, I'll actually move runtime up here because it's the future replacement of PHP version, we have already introduced support for Node.js websites to our hosting platform as well. Because even though we are specialized in hosting high-performance Drupal and WordPress websites, many and an increasing number of web agencies do use, for example, the headless approach, where the main content management still is done using Drupal, for example, but there is a Node.js-based front-end that pulls stuff from the Drupal backend, and Drupal doesn't render the front-end anymore. We need to go beyond PHP versions and offer actually something more generic. In this case, we've called it runtime. So this label is basically runtime version. Let's move repository URL up, because that's the leading information, and the branch is then just the sub information. That's exactly the webmaster email. See, that's that stuff. It doesn't just turn webmaster into a string named webmaster, even capitalized, but it does actually know in this context that it's the webmaster email address. And that is really amazing. Client ID, yes, that's apparently client ID, of course. And cluster ID, that's the same. Okay, brilliant. That's that. And now let's actually go back to... no, we can jump right into views, websites, edit. And this form only shows a subset of the fields. And we did actually not supply strings here in the first place, so it did actually only show main domain webmaster instead of webmaster email, environment instead of environment name. Interesting. But we did label PHP version here, which we don't have to anymore. And that's it. So let's take a look at how this actually looks. Let's go. Your session expired. Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought I clicked remember me. Customer. Example.com. Customer 123. You know what? I didn't click remember me because I didn't see the checkbox here. I'm not sure if this thing of a contrast issue or something. Now let's go into cluster 1 and site 12, for example. And if I click change, that should give me the form, and now it says properly. Well, it did say main domain before because that's the humanized form of the field name, but here now it says webmaster email, environment name, repository branch, and PHP version. Brilliant. People can't choose the repository URL because that gets assigned automatically. And if I click change main domain, it gets me to the same form, right? Yep. Where? Yeah, that's it, I guess. I was missing something, but I actually don't recall what it was. Webmaster email environment name. No, seems fine. Works better than before. And I didn't have to do much because we didn't have any label strings in the first place. Which is a bit lazy. Need to slap my own wrist there. But we still made changes because PHP version could go. So let's commit this, git add everything, and apply. Well, let's make this properly. Let's do. So that's actually a chore now. That wasn't a fix. We didn't have any issue for that, and it's still internationalization. Add local strings for website. I guess that's enough. That does say everything. Let's run another test. Now we might have some breaking tests. Let's see. I'd actually be surprised if there weren't any breakages. Okay, I am surprised. Okay, let's push this. And let's actually create a merge request here. This opened in a different browser, unfortunately, but that's okay. I'll just finish this quickly. Assign the merge request to myself. No reviewers, don't need any. Labels are already applied from the issue. Delete source branch when merge request is accepted. Yep, let's run this. Pipeline shouldn't take long either, so I will able to merge that quite quickly. I can even set it to auto merge. Did I fail to share my screen? Yeah, I think. You need to remind me if I fail to switch scenes and you can't see what I'm doing. No, the pipeline talk wasn't. And I guess you also didn't see the changes of that I did to the website form, I assume. Sometimes you get so focused on stuff that you, I'm just talking about myself here, so I don't see what's on screen, and that's probably in part due to me disabling the preview on my main screen, so I should keep the preview visible. Sacrifice a few CPU cycles to having two different previews running on different screens. That's why I have such a beefy machine in the first place. Okay, yeah, we have been going for quite a while. It's so hot in here, 25 degrees. At least the CO2 levels are low. So that doesn't explain why I'm tired. I probably should just sleep a little bit more and go to sleep earlier than before. Okie dokie. So that was quite a productive stream, I have to admit. We did some research on how to use Gitlab itself as a project management platform. That gave me a little bit of food for thought. And I guess that's something that I might be doing after this stream now, simply to think what that means for our own project management. And I also fixed the form issue, and people will now get more easily understandable error messages. That's all good stuff. Anything else you people want to talk about? Ask me. Share. Whatever. We still have a few minutes. But I'll have a long camera day anyway, because after dinner I'll have the group call for the Linux Administration Master Course. So yeah, I'll be zoomed out when I go to bed tonight. Did you start your NVim from a base config or from scratch? I did start it from my Vim configuration. So before I switched to NeoVim, I had been using Vim for a few years already, and I simply migrated my Vim configuration over to NeoVim, which of course it worked with nicely. And over time, especially when introducing new plugins that were Lua based, I either configured them in using Lua from the start, or I also started porting some of the configuration settings that I already had in Vim script over to Lua, just to get a little bit more consistency and homogeneity. Yeah, so there is still my main init file that is written in Vim script. But most of the plugin configurations by now have been rebuilt or built from scratch using Lua. And you can get those from my .files repository. So there is a !.files command that'll get you there, and you can look at them in detail. If you ask me then how did I start my Vim configuration? Yeah, I guess I started that from scratch. I don't remember copying someone else's configuration right at the start, but I might have started over using something like Vim from scratch or something. Not so sure anymore. That was many years ago. Nowadays, of course, there are a lot of interesting base configurations that you can simply copy and use yourself. Things like LunarVim, Vim from or NeoVim from scratch. Isn't there also AstroVim or something like that? So yeah, there are a lot of well-maintained Vim configurations. What I did only a few years ago, when I started getting stuff into Lua more, was that I watched a lot of videos by Chris at Machine on YouTube. And Chris did a series of videos where he built or rebuilt his Vim configuration from scratch. And that actually helped me getting things like LSP working, because then I simply copied what he had in his repository. And over time, I had actually to go into that and actually understand what it did, because I needed to make a few changes, or some plugin that was related to LSP became unmaintained or replaced by a new one.
It's a Unix system.
Cactus Creates, welcome to the stack. Good to have you. Why wasn't there any alert though? Or did you get an alert? I didn't get it because it's probably not switched to monitor. Let's see. Where are the alerts? Yeah. Let's switch that to monitor and output. Ah, brilliant. Yeah, that's what was supposed to happen, but I didn't hear it. I only saw it in chat. Oh, and on screen that we had the alert box. How you doing, Cactus Creates? Welcome. So where was I? Yeah, Chris at Machine had a great set of NeoVim configurations, and I actually had to start and understand what these do. Just to follow up with updates to LSP config and similar plugins for NeoVim. Doing great here myself. Great to hear that you're doing well. Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm actually just wrapping up the stream, and I guess we should pick someone to raid. And one of these days I'll get NeoVim set up. You should. Definitely should. I do enjoy using NeoVim now that it's set up properly. I'm not missing much. Most of the things that I keep adding are quality of life improvements, but nothing earth-shattering. And having an editor that simply does work how you expect it to and not be in the way is great. And now that I have Copilot integration as well, it makes things a lot easier, but because most of the time I only have to type half of what I need to type, and Copilot does the rest. And yeah, it's definitely a nice experience. And I'm not missing anything graphical like VS Code or something. Of course, I used these IDEs too before in the past. I did use VS Code, I did use RubyMine, but they actually didn't. I didn't stick with them for very long, and I did return to Vim quite quickly. Because it's just fun having an editor that works in the terminal, that doesn't require another window that takes up space on the screen and things like that. So yeah. And yes, of course, it's not held back by graphical stuff, pop-up windows, all these kinds of things. Having a terminal-based UI is a great thing. Just the other day, I unearthed my LaTeX files for the Perl Master course that I did about 15 years ago. And it was fun to see that they had the editor configuration comments at the end that actually set Emacs configuration. So those files dated back to a time when I was using Emacs to write my LaTeX stuff. That must have been at the beginning of the 2000s. And that was really fun to find these files with these comments at the end. You know, the comments that set spacing configuration and stuff like that. I actually wrote, VS Code is pretty snappy if you don't put in too many add-ons, but add-ons is the name of the game in VS Code. Yeah, that's a bit antithetical to the whole principle of VS Code. Yes, I said LaTeX. Mm-hmm. Because it's not latex. This is not a kink live stream. And the X at the end is actually a Greek chi or chi. So it's actually spelled out LaTeX. If you look at documentation like Leslie Lampert's books and things like that, so you'll see that it is actually an X that is a little bit swirly, and that's because it's not an X actually. It's a sh character from the Greek alphabet. The whole thing is Greek. Tech is, yeah, I'm not sure why Knut called it tech in the first place. Maybe because he was in tech, and tech is, I guess, the Greek root of the word technology and things like that. Well, let's actually find out. Let's do some history digging here. Let me close that and let's jump over to my screen here and do this. And now that I have my preview on screen, I can see that I should share this. So, yeah, and I'll also, wait, let's go here and then why is it called tech? Exactly. And no, you can't actually see the she sign here. Well, one sign is that this is a capital X, but that might, you might interpret that as a typographical thing. But here you can see, yeah, that's the actual Greek spelling with the theta, the epsilon, and the chi. I was reading about the etymology of the word technology, and when I saw how tech is written in Greek, the first thing that came to mind was tech. Yeah, that person came to the same conclusion the other way around by actually looking up the etymology of technology, of the word tech there. And here the response quotes Knut. English words like technology stem from a Greek root beginning with the letters tech, and this same Greek word means art as well as technology. Oh, that's philosophical. Hence the name tech. Okay, yeah, that does make sense. Which is an uppercase form of tech, theta, epsilon, chi. Insiders pronounce the X of tech as a Greek chi, not as an X, so that tech rhymes with the word blech. Yeah, it's a little bit hard because the English language doesn't have a sound like that. Gaelic words like loch have them, yeah. German has the ch, like in ach. In Spanish, it's more or less the like in Mexico, and Russian, okay. If you say it correctly to your computer, the terminal may become slightly moist. Can't find how to make the sh on the Mac keyboard. Yeah, there are a few Greek characters on the option layer. But does it have the whole alphabet? Yeah, I think I might have interpreted this wrongly. You could also interpret this as that the terminal might simply get a little spit on it, even though doesn't really make you spit. I have no idea what this person meant by become slightly moist. It's funny. And after reading some comments to this answer, I think the following quote is also appropriate. On the other hand, it's important to notice another thing about tech's name. The E is out of kilter. This displaced E is a reminder that tech is about typesetting, and it distinguishes tech from other system names. In fact, tex is the admirable text executive processor developed by Honeywell Information Systems. Ooh, a retro reference. Since these two system names are pronounced quite differently, they should also be spelled differently. The correct way to refer to tech in a computer file or when using some other medium that doesn't allow lowering of the E is to type tech with a lowercase e. Then there will be no confusion with similar names and people will be primed to pronounce everything properly. Yeah, that's right. Oh, I see. The text here, that as in text in all caps, that's the text executive processor. Which was probably an early era text editor on Honeywell mainframes, I assume. Yeah, Alrighty. So that's cleared up. And I guess before my terminal gets a little bit moist, I'll end this stream. I'll be back tonight for participants of the Linux Administration Master Course. We'll have our group video call there, simply to chat and resolve questions and do a few practices and things like that. And on this stream, I'll be back on Thursday afternoon, again with the Linux Administration Master Course and a new lecture about shell basics and the GNU Core util set of commands. That's going to be fun. And on Friday afternoon, there will be the OPSITIVE Office Hour. All of these streams and events are on the OPSITIVE calendar that you'll find at opsitive.com/events. There's a calendar on there where you can see when my streams are going to happen and when there will be additional teaching offerings and things like that. So I hope to see you again on Thursday afternoon here on Twitch and on live.opsitive.com. Thanks for watching. Let's actually leave these links. Again, thanks for watching, everyone, and until next time, take care.